Okay, wonderful. Well, I will hand you over to David and let him introduce today's session. And yeah, thank you very much to the CSR group and the two additional speakers who are joining us today. And really appreciated from everyone in the call and from the NTDC team. So, David.
Thank you very much, Savannah. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time this afternoon to join us, where we can talk to you about the new education technician standard that was introduced a couple of years ago. I'm joined today by a colleague and director at CSR, Simon Dukes, and I've also got on the call Bojena Jenkins, who leads on the standard. So if there are any sort of course-specific questions at the end, then we could maybe ask Bojena and she can hopefully answer those questions for you. And we're also really lucky today, and I can't thank them both enough. I've got Sarah Myers and Megan Matthias, sorry, from the University of Leeds. So they are an apprentice and the line manager of somebody that are actually on this standard at the moment. So we'll be able to get a little bit of an insight into how the standard is working for them and their experiences of the programme so far. So anybody that is considering enrolling somebody onto this programme, you'll get first-hand experience today of how it's actually working out at the University of Leeds. So I've got some slides to go through, and I'll just quickly share my screen. And does that come through, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, the Level 3 Education Technician Apprenticeship. We're here this week celebrating National Apprenticeship Week. So we've done a few events this week leading up to this. So I'd like to firstly thank Savannah for hosting today's session. And then there's a few slides that I'm going to go through, and then we'll get to meet Megan and Sarah a little bit towards the end. So let's go on to the first slide. So a little bit about the history of the standard. So the standard was started initially by NTDC. There was a perceived gap in the workable standard for technicians in the higher education sector. And it was deemed that out of the other standards that were available, none of them were really fit for purpose for what was required for technicians in a university setting. So there were sort of lab specific standards, but there was nothing that was more generic that would reach out into other areas. So back in 2017, the process was started of creating this standard. And then in September 2020, the standard was finally approved. And it first went live on the 1st of July 2021. So the standard, when it was first created, it was there to create some entry-level skills relevant to all discipline areas, and it was for both research and teaching technicians. And then on completion, apprentices can then sort of identify a route that they're keen to follow, and then sort of set a career path on that route. So a little bit about CSR. So we have been delivering apprenticeships primarily to laboratory technicians since 2011 across a variety of different sectors, currently working with around 14 universities in England. So we've got a lot of experience working with people in technical roles within a university setting. So when we looked at the new education technician standard back in 2022, we thought we were sort of really well placed, given our existing experience working with technicians in a sort of a higher education setting. So this was a really good alternative for the lab technicians. So it was for apprentices that weren't in a lab environment, but still wanted to develop their technical knowledge and skills in their field of choice. So we felt we were quite well placed to deliver that. Throughout 2023, we met with the Trailblazer group. So this is the group of organisations that created the standard. So initially started by NTDC, but there was sort of quite a significant input from some of the universities you can see on the screen, and some of which are with us today. So there was a lot of work going on in the background, and we were delighted back in October last year that we got our first national cohort off the ground, and that was with 10 apprentices from 6 different universities in England, so as far north as Leeds and Manchester, and then right down to Reading and Bristol in the south. And so far the feedback has been really positive, and you'll hear a bit more about that a little bit later on. So in terms of the standard itself, so every apprenticeship standard in England, of which there's around 693 at the minute approved for delivery, has associated with it a set of core occupational duties that an apprentice will be expected to be able to carry out in their normal day-to-day job. Simon sits on several different trailblazer groups. So Si, perhaps you could just briefly explain how the standards are created.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, so there's a lot of different trailblazer groups. There's a lot of different standards, and although there's 600 plus that are active at the moment, there's many more than that have been developed or in development or actually have ceased. Even when there are standards that are live, they also get refreshed. So the work is always ongoing. We actually have Caleb in the group here today, who leads on this standard, who put a huge amount of work into it. So I'm going to try and do that process justice. And so effectively, you have to submit to IFATE, the Institute for Apprenticeship and Technical Education, a request or a scoping document, really, that says we need this, the industry needs this particular sector. And they will ask you to scope out what the occupational profile looks like. What does somebody do? What's their activities and what's their focus for somebody who might carry out that role for those organisations? So that's kind of the first hurdle. And IFATE is an arm's length government body, and it regulates effectively what apprenticeship standards look like, and so we can have that consistency and we can make wholesale changes and improvements. But they will check firstly that nothing already exists. And that can be quite a hurdle in itself, because there can be several different groups who are looking to do something not exactly the same, but significantly similar. And that actually happened in this case as well. So there was another group in the healthcare sector who were looking to find an apprenticeship standard vehicle to use as well, to develop some of their staff, which was the simulation technician, which actually sits inside this standard as a pathway. I'm going to not focus on that now, because that's not really what we're here to talk about. Once the job profile is created, we then have a list of core duties that those individuals would carry out in order to contribute in that role for their employers. So there's a lot of backwards and forth and hopefully agreement about what those responsibilities are. And then a really key thing and a massive theme throughout all apprenticeship standards is the development of the knowledge, skills and behaviours that an individual needs to develop whilst they're on programme to deliver those duties successfully for their employer. And so that's really the main kind of almost DNA that flows within every single apprenticeship. So you'll always hear about knowledge, skills and professional behaviours that an individual develops to the level of the apprenticeship. So we're familiar with academic levels, clearly, and vocational levels will be very, very similar. So, and quite often we find with apprentices that by the time they complete, they're actually offering at a higher level than that. So that's really the minimum. They must meet at least that benchmark.
Thanks, Si. So I will share the slide deck with Savannah at the end, which she will share with everybody on the call. And there is a link at the bottom of this particular slide, which will take you to the standard on the IFATE website. So if anybody hasn't been on this site already, you can look at the core duties that have been assigned to this particular standard. And then you can also look at the option duties that are linked to the higher education assistant technician, which is what CSR is currently delivering. For anybody that was potentially looking at a simulation technician route, if that's of interest, please get in touch and I can put you with the relevant person who's leading on that particular version of the standard. So apprentice duration. So every apprenticeship will have a set duration or a guided duration, and we have tailored it accordingly. So this particular program is a 15-month on programs worth of delivery. And then there was a 3-month endpoint assessment window where the final hurdle sort of takes place, and an independent organisation will come in to complete the final assessment, or maybe like the driving test, if you like. So the total on programme is 15, and then there's a 3-month period for the endpoint assessment. And then the apprentice journey is broken down into different phases. So you start with an initial assessment. So again, every apprenticeship standard would start with an assessment, and this would be to determine existing technical competencies in this instance, but also we would look at the existing literacy and numeracy level of an apprentice coming on board. So the programme would then be tailored accordingly to somebody that might have more knowledge in a particular role, or their maths and English might be at a high level. So we can then tailor the programme accordingly. There is a requirement with this particular standard that by the time you get to the end of the programme, that the apprentice has achieved level 2 maths and English. So that's the equivalent of a grade C or 4 above at GCSE level. If you've got somebody coming on programme who doesn't have that that level 2 English and maths, we can work with them whilst they're on programme to gain a functional skills qualification, which is equivalent, which then can be used again if they wanted to access another apprenticeship. They've then got their level 2 functional skills, which would gain access onto further programmes. So the main bulk of the programme is phase 2. So that would be 15 months, and there would be formal weekly inputs with their cohort, with their vocational skills coach. So in the first month, it would be weekly inputs, and then from the second month through to the 15th month, there would be monthly inputs, and then there would be one-to-ones in between these formal sessions. So to discuss ongoing assignments, if there was any concerns, or you just need a little bit of a pointer, then we can arrange one-to-ones with the skills coach throughout the programme. And then there would be these formal inputs with the cohort every 4 weeks. Towards the end of the programme, the skills coach will come out on site to the workplace to do an on-site observation, and it all sort of kind of mirror the endpoint assessment scenario. So the apprentice will be sort of familiar by the time they get to the end of what their endpoint assessment is going to look like, and then they're prepared for the final hurdle to successfully complete. When they've finished all the on-programme elements, we go into a phase called Gateway, and this is when all final checks are done by CSR and the employer to make sure that all the parties are happy, that the apprentice is working at the required level, they have completed their competence log in the e-portfolio system, where all the work is set, and that the maths and English have been achieved at level 2. Then the final hurdle. So the final hurdle is the endpoint assessment. So that's where an independent organisation will come in for this particular apprenticeship. The endpoint assessment organisation is NOCN, and then they'll come in and assess the apprentice in the workplace. And then there's a couple of assessment methods that are associated with that final hurdle. So there would be an observation with questioning, where they can either achieve a pass or distinction grade. And then there's also a professional discussion, which is underpinned by the portfolio of evidence that they've been building over their time on programme, and again with either a pass or distinction grade. So to get a distinction grade, you would need to get a distinction in both of the assessment methods. If it was a distinction and a pass, then the end result would be a pass. So during phases 1 and 2, so the apprentice will be working against the knowledge, skills and behaviours of the standards. So they will be looking at all the different duties, and then they'll be collecting evidence of all the various different knowledge, skills and behaviours associated with the apprenticeship. And there will be an expectation that they're allowed on average 6 hours a week to complete all of their training and their assignments. And we refer to this as off-the-job training. And there are lots of different ways off-the-job training can be contributed to. So it could be shadowing a senior member of staff. It could be attending webinars or seminars, completing assignments, or attending some of the online lectures with the CSR tutor. So there's a variety of different things where we can capture the off-the-job training element, which we need to do to meet all the funding requirements.
I think, Dave, just to quickly interject into that, if an individual is on programme and you've got a really good understanding of what the knowledge, skills and behaviours are, even if it's not a formal interaction with the training provider, or it's not something that's been set by the training provider, but they're doing something which is developing those knowledge, skills and professional behaviours, then we can capture that as off-the-job training. If we can grab hold of the evidence, work with the apprentice to contextualise what they've learned, what they've been doing and how they've been doing it, and add it to the portfolio. So there's lots of ways. So it doesn't have to be always formal training for that period of time. There are lots of other ways, and often the best programs have that variation and that richness of of development that we can, obviously hold on to and bring it into the portfolio. It's a really good kind of good practice, really.
Brilliant, thanks, Si. Right, so we'll just move on to some of the topics that are covered. So there will be sort of themes in each month, which will link to each of the knowledge, skills, and behaviours, and we will provide you with a delivery plan, so you can see in any given month what duties and what knowledge and skills are going to be worked towards that month. And then if you're able to maybe tailor their working environment so it kind of mirrors their training, it's a really good way of them learning about their knowledge and skills in their lessons, but then also then going and applying it practically in the workplace. So I mean, I won't run through all the topics, but you can see on screen the types of areas that we'll be covering over those 15 months on programme. And in addition to everything that you see currently on the screen as well, all learners will be enrolled onto an external IOSH working safely course as additional CPD. So there is no extra charge for that, but after feedback from some of the universities involved in creating the standard, it became apparent that was quite an important area that they'd like covered. So we now include that working safely course as part of the programme. So the best experience.
Dave, can I just stop you there? We've got a hand up. We've got Petra with a hand up. So I don't know if there's a question coming in.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering whether there is any guidance to the workplace providers from the training providers on how to structure the workplace, on how to best structure the learning.
So I absolutely, and I think there's several things that I talk about being key. It's about strong line management and real involvement, but also a plan. We obviously have a plan from a training provider perspective because we absolutely need one, and you'd expect that. But a plan in the workplace so that then an individual can see what they're doing now, how that relates to what they're going to be doing in the future, which is then relating to performance, is really important. So we would absolutely be delighted to be able to sit down and work out what that plan looks like with the KSBs and the duties that we discussed in mind. Also, you can see what the delivery plan looks like. And that joined up approach is, it's really good. Sometimes you'll get apprentices, when we speak to them, say, oh, that's really funny because I'm doing that at work. And we're like, yeah, good. That's not a coincidence. But yeah, so that's...
So you do allocate some time to the workplace to sort of talk about how best to formulate a plan. That's good to know. I have heard from other programs that it wasn't always the case, so things didn't go so well.
Yeah, and that's it. You say things didn't go so well, so it is important, and the more communication we have, the better everything is going to be. So we would welcome that with open arms, Petra. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. And you'll notice, Petra, as well at the bottom of that slide. So there will be a quarterly review. So every 12 weeks. We will sit down with the line manager and the apprentice and the tutor, and we'll discuss everything that's gone well in the last 3 months. And there will be some workplace targets set for the following 3 months. So that's a really good time to sort of plan the next 3 months, look at the delivery plan, and then look at how you can facilitate that in the workplace as well.
Brilliant. That's very reassuring. Thank you.
Excellent. So going back to the best experience, I think we've put it front and center at the top in it, and it's line manager engagement, and we can't stress it enough. If you've got a line manager who's fully bought in and fully committed to the apprentice and helping them succeed, that is where you get the best results. And it's as simple as that. And there are lots of resources that we can provide line managers with. So if you're new to apprentices or apprenticeships, we can support you in what's expected of you. So we have lots of resources. We have PDFs, we have videos that we've created to support line managers in supporting their apprentices. So that would be the biggest tip we could possibly, if you can take one thing out of today, it's line manager engagement, and your apprentice will have the best experience if that's the case. So there's some examples of apprentices with good line manager experiences is when the managers are given sort of work that relates to the training and they show an interest in the training. We will give you access to the e-portfolio system, which you can access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's really good if you can dip in and out of that as frequent as you can and get your apprentice involved, and involve them in work that's going to strengthen their skills. And feedback is also really important as well. So give positive and give constructive feedback whenever possible. Apprentices, in our experience, have had poor experiences when the line manager isn't interested or doesn't see the training as a priority, or they only receive negative feedback, or they don't attend quarterly reviews. So that is where we have found in the past apprenticeship programs have fallen down. So these are just some of the things to look out for. And as I mentioned, we provide lots of resources for new line managers of apprentices. Another good thing to help an apprentice in the workplace is to maybe assign them a mentor or a buddy, whatever terminology you'd like to use. You know, there might be silly questions or questions they think are silly that they wouldn't want to go to somebody senior. So if they've got a mentor or buddy in the workplace, that they can then go and ask these, maybe what they deem to be a silly question, it just makes them a lot more confident. And performance manage them as you would any other member of staff. You know, from day one, let them know what your expectations are. For a lot of young apprentices, that this will be maybe their first job or their first proper job, and they might need a bit of guidance on timekeeping and what to wear, and just the basics that we might take for granted for those of us that have been in work for a number of years. This might be their first experience, so you know, make sure that you manage their expectations from day one. And as I mentioned before about attending the quarterly reviews, which we will run every 12 weeks, and it's a really good time to get together with the apprentice and the CSR tutor, and we can talk about what's going well and if there's any needs for improvement. If there is an issue between 12-week reviews, we wouldn't expect you to not raise them. So keeping an open channel of communication is really important. But yeah, the quarterly reviews is really the best place to raise you know, any concerns and set targets going forward. So I'm going to move on now, which I think is going to be the highlight of the day, to the Q&A session with Megan and Sarah. And then if it's all right, Si, I'll hand back over to you.
Fantastic. So no pressure there then, Dave. Thanks for that.
No.
So thanks. So what we wanted to do was let you hear about the apprenticeship standard from people that are experiencing it. So thank you so much to Sarah and to Megan for taking part in this from University of Leeds. So what we were going to do is ask them questions. We have primed these already, but I'll do my best not to trip up and put you off. But we thought we've had a conversation, and this was probably a better way to facilitate that. So I'm going to ask Sarah, I'm going to ask you a question first about what made you decide to recruit an apprentice into your team, and what was it about the education technician apprenticeship that attracted you?
Okay, can you hear me? I don't know if Savannah's unmuted me. You can.
Yeah, we got you, Sarah.
That's great, thank you. So for me, I've worked with a few apprentices and a few different providers in the past, and what really interested me in this programme was I think I got an email from Caleb, and it was part of technician's commitment, I think, something like that, and it popped up about an education technician, and to me that was just what I was looking for, because we have a lot of teaching laboratories, both undergraduate and master's students, and we could teach the laboratory classes, the science, the setup, we could do that ourselves to the right applicant, but what we needed was a course that would underpin those sort of research and teaching theories that would, support our apprentice in the laboratory, because what we wanted was, rather than having a research technician that did a bit of teaching or a bit of laboratory support, we wanted to nurture a technician that would become an expert in all the different types of laboratory classes that we have in chemical and process engineering, and really to see this as a lifelong career if the person wanted it, for them to really be able to develop. So that's why it attracted me. There are other level 7 laboratory technician, level 3 laboratory technician, but that's more on the science, whereas this is more all the things that encompass providing a good service. So as David said, like health and safety, professional relationships, you know, all the things that were on that list, and they were the things that I was looking for. And also that it was online. That's what really attracted me as well, because a lot of my apprentices don't really like traveling to college. It can be quite a way and, you know, a journey, and the fact that it was online attracted me very much to the programme.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. And so from when you decided this would be a good fit, how did you find that process then from kind of making your initial inquiries and then getting Megan started?
So I really communicated with David the most. We had a discussion around, say, the May Bank holiday about whether this education technician was the right one for me, you know, the right one for what we were looking at. And we quickly came to the conclusion that it was, and that CSR could provide that sort of program that I wanted. From that, I had a lot of support. We already drafted job description, but I had a lot of support as well with CSR about the job description and also advertising. We were quite late going out to advert because we were waiting for funding, wages, etc., sorting out. So we were quite late going out to advert. But again, that wasn't a problem at all. Everyone was so supportive, and we were able to get Megan on the programme. I think she started a week before, it actually started for proper. So the whole onboarding, the organisation, the support, it was just absolutely seamless. I was never left wondering what was happening, or have I got a place on the course? Are we secure with our learning provider? You know, it's just been absolutely perfect, an absolutely professional service.
That's great. And I suppose if you had your initial discussions in May, am I right that the program started in September in the autumn kind of time?
It was October in the end, yeah, third week in October. Okay. Yeah.
So it can take some time, can't it? And there's things when you're trying to recruit. I think quite often employers think it's too tricky, and they may just go to what they know. And I guess it is slightly different, and because of that, there is a little bit of unknown. But it's not impossible, clearly, to do. No. It just take a little bit of time. So
and I don't think it takes necessarily longer than recruiting somebody. And for us, we really needed somebody and wanted somebody to train. We had work for them to do as well. It wasn't as if, we were trying to find something for them to do. It was a genuine development role that we had, that we really felt we could embrace an apprentice in that area. So I think that's really important, as I think if you touched on before about knowing what your apprentice is going to be doing, how that can feed into the KSBs. It's no good having somebody turning up and you've got nothing for them to do, or nothing that feels that it has any meaning, because that can lead to people feeling, unhappy. What I would say about recruiting, and what I've learned as well, is if you think, if you're wanting to recruit, say, an A-level students, I think sometimes a time to start looking, or you need to start planning maybe a year in advance. So the September time, when students are thinking about applying to university, is the time to start advertising and getting things in place, because that's when people are looking for things. People do look for things all the time, but if you can capture your students that are applying through UCAS, that they can apply for an apprenticeship and know they're secure, and they've got a development plan and an apprenticeship that's paid, they've got good career prospects. That's off that for me in the future. Now that's the time I'm probably going to go out to advert, even though it's a bit early. I think that can be a good way of working as well. But equally, any time of the year is good, because there's programs rolling all the time. I think they don't necessarily start at one point, but I think if you're looking for somebody a route rather than university, a route as an apprentice, I think for the applicants, I think September, October is probably quite a good time to advertise as well.
Some good advice, thank you. Okay, brilliant. So hold that thought. We'll come back there. So Megan, over to you. How did you hear about your apprenticeship vacancy? What made you want to apply for it?
So I saw it on the University of Leeds job website, and when I saw it advertised, the combination of learning and working really appealed to me because I'm still quite young. I'm pretty eager to learn, but then at the same time, it's having that wage and having the combination of both of them. I thought it was really good. And then as well, this job, the requirements didn't ask for like engineering or scientific background. It just asked for sort of good communication skills and clearly someone that's like ready to learn and
Get stuck
learn
in.
all the new responsibilities. Yeah. So I thought that it was an opportunity I couldn't really turn down.
Brilliant. Okay. And what was your background when you started your apprenticeship? Were you
I had
school
just
or-
finished university myself. I had just graduated, and then from there it can be quite daunting looking at all the sort of job, like seeing all the different careers out there. And then, like I said, with this one, it didn't ask for a specific background, and engineering specifically appealed to me because I'm sort of surrounded by engineers. I've got a lot of engineering friends, and I just thought it's so relevant. And to just be in that environment, yeah, it really appealed to me.
So the attraction of an apprenticeship was that about continuing learning as much as getting stuck in for you?
Yeah, definitely. Because as much as a job with maybe a higher salary is nice, you're not necessarily like learning on this. I saw that you can continue doing this CSR course as well as going to work every day, and having that side of it definitely appealed to me because I knew there'd be sort of in a class alongside other people doing the same thing as me and receiving that support.
Great. Okay. So what about your experience then with onboarding and enrollment and getting all those details? Because there's a lot of paperwork, I know, well, there can be. So how was that for you?
Yeah, it was actually really simple. I think both like Sarah and everyone at Leeds were really inviting. So was CSR. Everyone's been like really accommodating. They've given me everything I could possibly need. They've given me like this laptop that I'm using, my own little space, my desk. I've got a really friendly team, and then CSR as well, very attentive. I'm in very constant contact with like Virginia. I know that if there's anything I ever need, I can contact her, speak to them. We have our calls like once. It was more regular, and then now we're on about once a month. But I know that in that time, I can always contact them if there's anything I need. So I think the whole process has been really, really supportive.
Great. And you've got to grips with the software that we use and all those kinds of things. Okay.
Yeah, it's really good actually. I really like the one file system. It's I like always keep it up on a tab on my screen so I can see the off the job stuff that I need to be keeping up with, and I can do my different English and maths courses. And then yeah, the Teams calls as well, they're really good.
Excellent stuff. Okay. So what about the job itself? What does your role look like? What are your responsibilities? What is it that you're doing?
So at the moment, I've got a mentor called Chris. He's a teaching technician in the teaching labs, and we're basically preparing for the undergraduate and some of the master's practicals that they're doing in the lab. So it's just like I've been getting basic sort of technician skills through work. I've been like weighing out samples and changing gas cylinders. So I've been doing all that while I've been learning. Alongside like the whole course, I've been learning about why I'm doing it, all the health and safety of it, and yeah, it's just gone really well hand in hand.
Great. So you're doing stuff, and then you know why, and yeah,
Exactly.
all that yeah. Brilliant. Okay, great stuff. So back to you, Sarah, if that's okay. So back to the apprenticeship and the impact really. So what impact has Megan had on your department since she's joined you? What's that felt like for you as a line manager?
Well, for us in Scape, it's just been fantastic having Megan. She's like fitted into the team straight away. We're so looking forward to her coming as well when she agreed. You know, we're all really excited. And she's fitting amazing, you know, with Chris. Chris is mentoring her on the day-to-day. She's brought a fantastic energy. You know, she's made us all feel younger, which is great. You know, and she's just been really amazing. We're just so lucky to have her. She's an absolute pleasure to have around. And, you know, she's really, her work has been so helpful, you know, as well. It's not as if she's creating extra work for us. She's not. It's like she's a part of a team. She comes in, she does her work, you know, so she's just been great. And as I say, we're so lucky to have her, and lucky that really that she picked us and was happy to like take a bit of a chance, because it, you know, I said to, you know, we're so rushed, you know, can you start next week? You know, it's a new course that we're doing, and you know, she just embraced it, and yeah, she's just been fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting. And I remember the first ever graduation event that we did at CSR, and I spoke at it, and we only had, I think, 15 or 16 people. They're all doing a program that was brand new to apprenticeships, and I talked about risk. There were some employers there, obviously, but I wasn't talking about the risk for the employers. It was the risk that the apprentices. It's a two-way thing, isn't it? When it's an unknown or not a very well-trodden path, there's risk almost on both sides. So it's great that you kind of both embrace that. So we talked about OJT, off-the-job training. How's that impacted in the day-to-day? Because as you rely on somebody more and more, to lose them it is a bit tricky, I suppose.
Well, I look after 130 technical staff in total, and I truly believe in training and development. So whether you're on an apprentice program or not, I would expect all of my technicians to be taking some time in the working week for development. Yeah. So for me, it's not a problem. We think about that when we're planning our workloads anyway, and it's not been a problem for the school or the faculty. And what I would say is that it adds value, you know, and it adds value to the students, our undergraduates, our master's students, that Megan and all our technical staff are on a permanent, if you like, professional development cycle. So, you know, to me, it should be and is part of the day-to-day.
Yeah, great. Okay, and back to you, Megan. In the time that you've been on programme, how do you feel that the apprenticeship has started to build your knowledge, your skills, and into that role? What's that impact like?
Yeah, it's been amazing, to be honest. It's like I was saying about the CSR course and the job going hand in hand. It just works so well, like learning about all the different because a lot of it, health and safety, I did not realize how huge it was until I came in. So we've covered so much of that content, and I understand why we have to do everything, and then I'm doing it. And I think it's such a good thing to be going into this line of work and to get that like foundation before I've got more like roles that I could go into. I could understand why most of the systems are in place that are in place. Because if you were to come externally into a technician kind of role, then I feel like it would be very overwhelming and you wouldn't understand what's going on with all the, like, it is just mainly the health and safety. But I think, yeah, I've expanded a lot of skills, even just communication, because I speak to the undergraduates, the master's students, I speak to PhD researchers, and then all the other technical staff. It's just been great.
Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So back to Sarah. So what differences have you noticed then in Megan since she started? Is it that to do with that communication and being able to offer a different perspective? Or?
Well, I think Megan naturally is a very she's a people person. You know, she's very friendly, she's very open. You know, she likes getting involved and finding out about different people and how they are, which is great. You know, great asset to have when you know, so if you like, customer focused, you know, student focused as we are. But I would say for Megan, her confidence has grown tremendously in the practical classes. You know, she's so proactive. She's like looking for things, finding things, chatting to the students, supporting them. So I was just thinking when we're on this call, I think it's just only 4 months, really. It's not very long, because say we started at the end of October. So it is about 4 months. And you know, she's just as if she's always been with us. And that's how her confidence has grown from walking in through the door. You know, she's just a part of us and a part of our team, and you know, so I guess the confidence has grown dramatically, and you know, all I can see is continuing to be an absolute success, you know, within the University of Leeds. That's all I can say, really.
Well, that's brilliant. So Megan, how does it feel having such an advocate as your line manager? Has that been a help to you?
Yeah, definitely. I feel really lucky to have Sarah as my line manager. she works so hard to advocate the importance of like a technician's role, because I think technicians have been definitely sort of the importance of their job. You wouldn't know it from the outside, but it's huge. And in academia particularly, they don't get enough credit. And Sarah all the time is trying to work hard to recognize that and to give us all the support and rewards. So I'm really, really glad that I've got someone like Sarah to always go to if I need anything. And generally about my future of my apprenticeship, about the future job prospects in the university. I feel like we've got an open communication about that in like quarterly reviews and stuff. We've discussed the plan, and yeah, I just feel really supported.
Great stuff. Amazing. So last question for each of you. I'll start with you, Sarah. It's kind of, again, back to that acid test. So based on your experience so far, I think I know what you're going to say. Would you consider recruiting another apprentice into your team?
Yes, absolutely. It's like working on that already. I've used different providers as well, but my experience with CSR, you know, like the online training, just everything about it, the you know, the onboarding, everything has just been so good. It's been really, really, really great, and so I'm really looking to work with CSR more regarding apprentices and taking on more apprenticeships. Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, we've got like a bit of a social duty as well to do it. You know, it's a really excellent way of training new people coming into the workplace, and I think once you get into the routine of it and get in, you know, then and get into a position where your university or your workplace is thinking about the funding going forward for apprenticeships, then it's just like, you know, it's just like an open door. It's just like such a great way of training and learning for people on the job. We're very involved in the technicians commitment at Leeds, and Megan has joined that as like an apprentice to bring her voice to like a lot of older people like me who have been technicians for years, trying to sort things out. But we really wanted younger people to come in as well and talk about their experience. So, you know, an apprentice can add benefit to your organisation or your company on so many different levels. And you know, I would really recommend it, and certainly try with one and see how you get on with it.
Superb. Okay, and final question, Megan. Any regrets? Are you happy with your decision?
Oh no, I'm really, really glad that I got chosen for this job and got given this opportunity. Especially like I said, I'm just coming in at entry level without experience in this field. Yeah, I'm really glad I'm here.
Great stuff. And
So
thank
good
you.
to hear. So good to hear from both of you. Brilliant.
That's it. Well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I guess we'll open it up to any questions for either Sarah or Megan.
Before we do,
any...
I also just wanted to say
Sorry.
we do have Bojeno on the line here, I think still. So if there are any detailed questions, maybe B could handle some of those as well. But yeah, over to you and questions. Petra, I can see your hand up.
I have a question to Megan about the online format of the training. I mean, I understand, I like the idea. It's flexible, no need to travel, but I'm wondering whether it is possible to form a sense of community among the fellow apprentices if it's all online and you don't see each other in person. Or,
Yeah, that's a fair
so,
question.
then are you missing it, or are you meeting up anyway, or how do you connect?
Well, we do have very interactive Teams calls, so we do breakout rooms every session. So I feel like I've got to know each person in my sort of class one-on-one because I've had the opportunity to speak to them. We do like multiple breakout groups every session. So I think every single person in my class, I know their role, where they work, what they do. And our class is so varied. There's people from like Reading, there's someone in Leeds as well, actually. But I feel like there's so many of us, and it's amazing that we have the opportunity to do it online because we're from obviously opposite ends of the country, but we still all get to be in this one class together.
Thank you.
Great. Esme.
Hi there, good afternoon. I work for the University of the Arts London. Thank you for this. It's been really interesting to hear about kind of how it is in practical terms. I just had more of a question around the kind of content of the delivery. So I work a lot with the heads of resourcing and the technical managers to think about how we can implement apprenticeships in the technical space and technician space. And I think it would be really helpful, and apologies if I've missed this, but to have a kind of overview, not just of the apprenticeship standard, because the standards, but of the module or scheme of work breakdown, just to sort of really clearly be able to sort of almost sell it to them clearly on what it is the apprentices will be learning. Is that possible to see somewhere?
So it will be our version. So obviously, I'm about to say absolutely you can see it. I'm sure we've got examples of it that we've talked to other customers. David B, have we got those we could share through Savannah maybe?
Are we thinking the delivery plan, B?
Yeah, so in the delivery plan, the way the delivery plan's sort of been developed, and also the entire course, I've tried to develop it in a natural way where the sort of topic areas and the different criteria and how they would naturally be meeting them as a new employee and somebody coming into the business, and some of the different things that they would be growing and learning to do. And within the delivery plan, within each sort of module topic area, I've identified the criteria that are covered and how they're grouped together. So that gives you a bit of an idea what sort of falls in within that sort of within that module and that topic area.
That would be really helpful if it is possible to share that, because I think it brings it alive for people who maybe, because sometimes the apprenticeship standards aren't always easy to interpret. I mean, we live and breathe them in the apprenticeship space, right? But other people don't. So thank you. That'd be helpful.
No problem.
Thank you. Thanks, B. Arthur, I think you were next.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I've submitted a couple of questions on the chat, so I'll just try and sort of reiterate those. So I think Megan and Sarah provided me to some answers, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. So as an employer or apprentice, why would they choose this standard over one of the standards that might provide a more specific focused set of skills, like the laboratory, the level 3 laboratory skills?
From my perspective, Arthur, I think that if somebody's in the laboratory space, and that's the technician, the classical laboratory technician role, then that is the standard that they should be doing. I think if something sits outside of that, if the role sits outside of that, if you're supporting multiple different faculties, and it might not be a great fit. So if the lab tech's not a great fit, and quite often I think when people do the laboratory technician, the progression route is into, well, if you look at the standards, there's technician scientist, and the next, that's at level 5. And the next one is the degree, the laboratory scientist degree level. And if you look at the occupational profile for those, they are no longer technicians, they are performing research and tests. So the career path has evolved and changed. So I think that if you wanted to stay within that occupation, this really is the main vehicle for development at that entry level stage. And Caleb, have there been discussions around the progression routes inside this standard for other standards to be developed?
I think that's something that there's definitely interest in, and I think it's something we definitely would like the Trailblazer group to consider if they want to work on that next. Just on that first point, one of the things I would also say is the difference between this and the lab technician apprenticeship is this one is designed for use in university, so takes into account the student context and the research in a university context, whereas the lab technician standard is more designed by private, big companies that use it. So this is more bespoke for universities than for sort of private companies, etc.
Okay, can I just answer my own question? If that's so I'll answer it on Megan's behalf. So Megan might butt in and tell me something different. If it was Megan, I think I'd have been looking at. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to end up, whether I might be a physics technician or a a technician in geography or anywhere at a big higher education institute. If it was Sarah, I think I would be wanting someone with a broad set of core skills and knowledge, which this looks to provide. I'm not an expert on the standard, so I've not seen it. Is that about right, Megan and Sarah?
Yeah, for me it's definitely so. The standard laboratory technician wasn't correct for what I wanted. You know, I get research technicians. You know, I wanted a teaching technician. So it's about understanding those experiments. You don't have to be a research scientist, and being able to communicate that to the students. So
do you find that gives your apprentice more flexibility so they can move wherever within the university from that apprenticeship?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, we're keeping Megan in one school, but we've got lots of different sort of laboratory teaching spaces within that. So she's going to get lots and lots of different experience. You could use these set of standards across a university. So someone could have different experience of different kinds of laboratories, say earth and environment, engineering. You could do it that way as well, definitely. Yeah, so then they could choose which sort of area they like the best. Yeah.
And Megan, did that sort of thought process enter your mind?
Yeah, so for me, I think a massive part of it being a teaching apprenticeship is about like the communication side of it and dealing with the people as well as just the technical skills, and I'm learning both, so I think it's just as good for like future prospects, because I can go into like technical stuff or even other things that would just like build on the skills of like the communication side of it.
So that then brings me on to my second part of my question.
Arthur, I don't know with the mind on the clock.
Sorry, all right, okay.
Giovanna also waiting patiently.
Fine, okay. Well,
Okay.
I'll leave that in the chat, and perhaps when you can get
yeah,
back.
we'll answer that. Yeah, okay. Thank you. No problem, Giovanna.
So I had one question, but now I would like to follow up a tiny bit on what you just are talking about. So first of all, my question was about the length. So I work at University College London, and my experience is not direct. I have been talking with few people that either have been the managers of apprentices or apprentices themselves in the other program, the laboratory technician program. And so one of the two questions is the one that you are presenting today new, and therefore this is the one that now is more specific for teaching laboratories, for teaching technicians, because the laboratory technician program was used for teaching technicians in the past. That's what, quite a few of the examples that we have at UCL have been on the laboratory technician program, and they were working in teaching labs. I am interested to actually find a program that could be across the board, because for the kind of jobs that we have, it might be difficult to actually provide enough experiences for apprentices in just one sector or the other. And I work at faculty level, so I was hoping to find a program that would allow the apprentice to actually have experiences both in teaching labs and in research labs. So it would be good to know what you advise in terms of these two frameworks. And in terms of the time, the point is the people that have experienced this, they actually ran it for a couple of years. It wasn't a 12-month program with plus the 13. And if I look at the link that was put into your chat, that suggests a 24 months program. So I don't know, because obviously the university will cater for having that program for a certain amount of time. And so it makes a big difference if it's 1 year or 2 years.
Okay, so I'll take it the time one first, and then perhaps others could jump in around the suitability and the difference. But this is a 15-month program plus 3 with the endpoint assessment. One of the crucial differences between the laboratory technician is that in our experience, most of the customers that we have for the laboratory technician would also have an academic qualification at the same time. That means that the program, because of that, has to be longer. If you take that element out and you're focusing on a really good workplace where there's lots of variation, there's lots of experience and lots of opportunity to develop, you won't need that length of time to develop the skills that the standard need for the KSBs. So often, even when we run the laboratory technician without an academic qualification, it would be 18 months rather than 24 months. What the information will say on the Trailblazer on the IFATE site is an expectation, almost an average, and before it's run, they've already said 24 months before it was even delivered in practice. So as things are refreshed and we get more information about how well it can be delivered and what the experience is like, both for employers and apprentices, you may well see that flex slightly. I know Caleb this year is probably looking at a light refresh of this standard as well. So over to the suitability then across faculty. I think maybe somebody else might be able to answer that.
I can jump in. I've got experience of both. So I've been to universities and been a vocational skills coach for learners that have been on the lab technician program. And it's not to say that that is not suitable. However, from what I've seen, it's more suited to those who are in the science setting, because typically, as Simon mentioned earlier, a lot of that goes on to, and the possible career progressions do go to sort of laboratory settings that then go on to either manufacture or do research that does tend to be within sort of the scientific sphere. With the education technician, part of the reason it came to me to develop is I have experience working within sort of the academic sphere as a technician. Whilst it was science, I can appreciate that there are, especially within a university, lots of others who are within technicianing roles. And I think that's opened up the opportunity for those other technicians, so that it's not just science technicians that are doing a qualification. We've got a varied group, as Megan said. There's people from all over the country, but also working within different scopes as technicians within the university. So although some still might feel that it feels more science focused, there's nothing in it that says specifically science. It's the opportunity as a technician to develop those skills. And there's opportunities then as you take on an apprentice, if there are areas that haven't been explored before for development, there's the opportunity to do that throughout the course. And we can always talk about those aspects within quarterly reviews to get a feel for what it is that's going on within the department. So it really comes down to who those technicians are, who you're considering for the standard, and also in part where their paths might lead in the future. If they've come in with a science degree and they really want to pursue research and they've specifically gone for a lab technician role within the science sphere, then possibly the laboratory technician standard is the pathway for them, because that's what they want to pursue further. But with the education technician, as Megan said, it opens up doors that might not just be down the science route, basically.
Right, thanks, B.
Thank you.
Okay, Savannah, how are we for time?
All right, we're at 2 minutes past 2, and aware that some people will be kind of jumping out, but as it is recorded, and we do have a question in there from Ange, which I think would be great to cover if that's okay.
Of course.
People have time to do so. Ange, I don't know if you want to ask that in person, or do you want me to read it out? I can see you, so.
No, that's fine. So my question was, which actually B is sort of answered now, is of the 10 technicians you've got in the current cohort, how many are from creative practices?
Creative, I've got one that I think falls into creative. She's within the theatre drama side of things. It's interesting for me a lot, because in part everyone's coming from different sort of technician backgrounds. Part of the learning experience and what is sort of built in is we're encouraging the learners to sort of share their experiences, because that helps us to build on the course as well. And I think I've recently spoken to the line managers again. I think they've sort of felt, actually, is this a bit more sort of what is considered a traditional technician sort of pathway, but I'm working with them to sort of open up their apprentices' experience and actually seeing how they can explore sort of her training in order to enable her to meet the knowledge, skills and behavioural criteria in ways that they might not have considered before necessarily.
Okay, but it's really useful because we're wanting to get some apprentices in our medium performing arts and art and design areas, because we've got a particular issue in those with our ageing workforce. But the other apprenticeships available are really niche in those areas, like a jewellery apprenticeship, but that's too niche probably. So which is why we're looking at this one.
Yeah. No, it's good, and I think there's scope for all technicians really. With the criteria, part of my role is to help an apprentice interpret how what they do sort of fits into that criteria, and I give them all an overview of the terminology and the different sort of core things, but then how that sort of connects to them and their role is almost on a one-to-one basis, really learning about what it is that they do and helping them to understand how what they do fits in with the criteria.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just to jump in on that, Angel, as you're aware, it'll probably be quite proportionate to the technical landscape in general. So while a lot of the time the NTDC and other organisations are pushing for more, visibility, creativity. Oh, sorry, Till, I'm just going to mute you. That probably is proportionate to the landscape as a whole.
Yeah.
And so it's a tricky one, but yeah, great to hear that. So thank you very much, Bea, for explaining that. And Simon, David, I'll pass back over to you.
Okay, great. So there was another question that was posted. I don't know how, we're probably running out of time, so apologies if we can't cover everything. But in terms of finishing up the session, Dave, I think over to you potentially.
So I will send out the slide deck. We do have a cohort due to start in September. So if anybody is considering enrolling staff, either new or existing, just so you can plan ahead. We plan to run a cohort in September. This slide deck will go out, so if anybody wants to get in touch to have a further discussion about how we can support you in bringing an apprentice on board, then please get in touch. But thank you all today for spending your Friday afternoon with us, and I hope it's been an enjoyable session. And especially to Sarah and Megan, thank you so much. It's great to hear your stories, and I'm so glad that you're both doing so well at Leeds.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay.
Thanks very much, David.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Thanks so much for coming on.